everyone, Zeddy here again today with a brand new video. And finally, all the cards for Scholomance Academy have been revealed. We know every single card that will be launching on August 6th. So finally, I'm ready to inform you of my terrible, uninformed opinion on all of the cards. But in all honesty, we'll try our best to review them accurately, get a good idea of what's going to be good, what you can expect in the next expansion. And we're going to review every single class, all the 9 original classics, plus Demon Hunter, plus Neutral. They'll all be in their own video, and you'll be able to easily sort through all of that. We're going to rate on a 5-star scale, 5-star being a god tier card that it's like auto-included in every single deck pretty much, and 1-star being utter garbage that maybe would pick an arena. And we are going to rate every single card in both Standard and Wild. So, one card might be completely useless in Standard and insane in Wild, or vice versa, or good in both. So, I'm going to use my expertise as someone who plays High Legend in Standard and Wild, some ratings on each format. So, let's get going. Today, we will start with Druid. And the first card we have in Druid is Partner Assignment. It's a 1-mana spell, and it adds a random 2-cost and 3-cost beast to your hand. So you get, 2 random beasts. You can play this on 1, and then you can technically like curve out into a 2-drop and a 3-drop. But random beasts, they can be really bad. There's a lot of bad beasts. And, I mean, if you're looking for a value card, I don't think you really care about this. I don't see this fitting into, like, any deck really in Druid. I just think it's kind of a garbage value card you might take in Arena. I'm going to give this a 1-star in both Standard and Wild. I don't see it in either format. I really don't. Next, we have Gibberling. It's a 1-mana 1/1 Spellburst, summon a Gibberling, which is itself. So, if you play this, you play a spell, the Gibberling is spawned, and, well, that one will have Spellburst, and you can kind of keep chaining. So, it's kind of like a good little token generator, and if you're playing, like, token buffs and Savage Roar and Soul the Force, you might be able to make it work. And there's a couple of new cards in the set, especially like Adorable Infestation, that might be pretty good with this. But overall, it's kind of a weak body. It's just 1/1s, and there's not a lot of insane buffs in Standard. I don't think it makes the cut there. I would be quite surprised. So I'm going to give it a 2. I don't think it's a bad card. I just don't think it'll be good enough. In Wild, however, there's a lot of cheaper stuff. You have Mark of the Lotus. You have like patches and all these good token generating cards. And you can do it big and stuff. And all that thing, all of that. I still don't think that deck is good enough. I still don't think this kind of like the support that's coming in the set would push it over the top. But maybe, especially with the Lightning Bloom coming up, you never know. So in Wild, I'm still going to give it a 2. I'm going to give it a 2 across the board. But I think there's more potential in Wild, if anything, for this card. Next, we have Twilight Runner. It's a 5-mana 5/4 beast with stealth. Whenever this attacks, draw 2 cards. Really good card. Like, I mean, it's one health off a Stranglethorn Tiger, which you don't really care about its health. And that card has been fringe playable times. And whenever this attacks, it draws 2 cards. Really good. There's a spell that can cheat this out and give it rush. That draws 2 cards. That could be really good. I don't know what deck this fits into, but it's such a powerful card that you might just throw it into like a Spell Druid or just anything. Just to draw 2 and get a body and go face or get a good value trade. I'm going to give it a 3 in Standard. I just feel like it's got to find a home. This card's just too good, right? It's got to see someplace somewhere. So I'm going to give it a 3 there. In Wild, these cards are just not good enough. They're too slow. And there's this, you know, your opponent's summoning giant demons or killing you with Quest Mage on 5. Like, I don't see this fitting in. So I'm going to give it a 2 in Wild. But it's, again, not a bad card or anything. Next, we have Teacher's Pet. It's a 5-mana 4/5 beast. Dual class for Hunter and Druid, but we're going to be reviewing as a Druid card. It has Taunt, and it summons a random 3-cost beast. So, yeah, think about, you know, all the random 3-cost beasts you can get from, like, Mount Seller and that. 5-mana 4/5 Taunt's pretty mediocre. Random 3-cost beasts can be okay, but you're only getting 1. It's not like Mount Seller where you're spamming a bunch of crap and then buffing them. I don't see this really fitting into a deck. I don't see cheating this out. I don't see this being anything. I'm going to give it a 1 in both Standard and Wild. I don't see this as anything. Next, we have Guardian Animals. 7-mana spell. Summon 2 beasts that cost 5 or less from your deck. So basically, you're only going to want to run 5-cost beasts. Because it's not really a 4/3 or you really, really want to hit. So again, you want to hit like Twilight Runner, Teacher's Pet, one of those kind of cards. And overall, I just don't think that's worth building your deck around, having your strategy around. Especially better options, just like ramping in a Mount Seller or stuff like that. Especially in Standard. I'm going to give it a 2. It's not bad. It's not great. And in Wild, I don't think you're ever playing this in Druid. I can't see it, so I'll give it a 1 in Wild. Next, we have Survival of the Fittest, 10-mana spell. Give +4/+4 to all minions in your hand, deck, and battlefield. So this buffs everything, except like if you're spawning tokens later, those won't get the buff, but any minion pretty much gets hit by this. And yeah, there's not very many minion-heavy Druid decks in Standard or Wild at the moment. There's like Spell Druid, but again, there's this whole token Druid thing going on, like with Gibberling, but I feel like this spell, it's so expensive, and if you're playing a kind of a spam minion deck, you're not playing a lot of more expensive stuff, and the only way you're getting this out for cheap is if you God Ramp or hit like Ramp into Kael'thas, and it's quite the high roll. It might be worth it, but I feel like it won't be consistent enough to make this card worth, especially at 10 mana. So I'm going to give it a 2. It's not very strong in Standard, and in Wild, Druid just has way different, more degenerate stuff to do, so I'm going to give it a 1. I can't see it seeing play in Wild. Next, we have Forest Warden Omu, legendary for Druid, 6 mana, 5/4. Spell Burst, refresh your mana crystals. So basically, everyone's like, oh crap, you can give this Germination. You Germination it, and then you proc the refresh your mana crystals part. You get 10 mana. And then the copy of it will then have Spell Burst, and you can get another 10 mana. So Mally Druid might be back on the plate in Standard, or you can just do like a bunch of degenerate stuff. So I think in Standard this will see play just because that potential is insane. The survivability of Druid, though, on the other hand, to make this happen, especially in Standard, is very problematic. It's tough to live without being kind of a spammy, high-roll, mid-range aggro tempo deck, you know? So I'm going to give it a 3. I think it'll see play in Standard. And in Wild, I just can't see this really taking the place of the current Melon Avion Akun thing. Like, you don't need 20 mana when you Avion Akun, you know? And it's a lot harder to set up, and you don't need that in Wild. So in Wild, I'm actually just going to give it, like, a 2. It's a good card, but, again, you even have Twig, you don't use that. So, yeah. Standard doesn't really have something like this, and I think it's going to do some work. So I'll give it a 3 there, but I think it's still going to be kind of fringe just to make that work. Then we have a dual-class Legendary Speaker, Guydra, 3 mana, 1/4 Rush, Wind Fury, Spell Burst. Gain attack and health equal to the spell's cost. So even if it's like a 2-mana spell, you get 2/2 on it. It turns to like a 3/6 Wind Fury Rush thing. I don't know. I don't see this doing enough. Like, it's a good minion, sure. But what are you doing with it? And I can't really put that together. Like, I guess you could combo it with a 6-mana spell. Or, you know, something like that. And then you have a 7/10 Wind Fury Rush, I guess. But, like, still, at that point in the game, there's just better stuff to do. So I'll give it a 2 in Standard and a 1 in Wild. Because, again, in Wild, I can't ever imagine this popping up in any deck. I don't know what you would do with it. I really don't. Then we have Runeic Carving, 6 mana dual class spell, and it's a choose 1 card, so you can like use this in Quest Druid, although you probably don't want to. Summon 4 2/2 Treant totems, so they're treants and totems, or you can overload for 2 and summon them with Rush. So you have 6 mana 8/8 and Rush, or just 6 mana 8/8. I feel like in Druid, there's again better options to vomit the board with. And, like, you have Glowfly Swarm, which is so much better than this. Yes, you can give the Rush part, but the Overload's actually kind of a big deal. You don't really want to Overload with this. And I'm not really sold on it. So, in Standard, I'm going to give it a 2. Again, it's not a terrible card. It's got some flexibility. And I don't think you want to run a Quest Druid, because you always have to Overload. That feels kind of bad. And in Wild, again, Druid has better options. Is not going to play this if they're going to play a token deck. It's just not really good enough. We have Adorable Infestation. This is a 1-mana Druid spell. Give a minion +1/+1. Summon a 1/1 cub. Add a cub to your hand. Cub is just a 1/1 beast. You need a minion for this to be active to be good, right? So you can't really play it on 1. But it's effectively a 1-mana 2/2 and a bit of value. I think if that token deck is going to work, this card will be in it. And I'm not sure it'll work, but it's not a bad card. Like, you get a buff, you get some value, but it's awkward. So I'll give it an optimistic 3, but I'm really not sold on it. And in Wild, this has implications and could do well, especially in the token Druid decks, like the Embiggen token Druid. You always have something to hit with this. Like, there's so many 1-drops, so many tokens, even Living Roots. I think it'd see play in that deck, so I'm going to give it a 3 in Wild, too. I just think it's very solid there. And, yeah, that deck is getting some support, so it might pop up again in Wild. Next, we have Groundskeeper. It's a 4-mana 4/5 taunt. Battle Cry if you're holding a spell that costs 5 or more, restore 5 health. So it's like Sen'jin with +1 attack and some upside. It's freaking crazy, right? But I don't know what the hell you're playing this in. I really don't. Like, maybe Quest Druid, I guess, if it's good enough, because you have Nourish, Starfall, Hidden Oasis. You have a lot of cards that can get the effect, because you want the effect. Even by itself, a 4 mana 4/5 taunts, not good enough, not in today's Hearthstone. But I feel like the upside's good enough, and especially if Quest Druid can become a thing again, or you are running expensive spells where it's worth it. I'll give it a 3 on that mark. In Wild, you're not playing this in Druid probably ever, so I'll give it a 2. Even Oaken Summons is not really good enough to cheat it out of. Then we have Lightning Bloom. It's a 0 mana spell. Remember Innervate? Well, it's back. Gain 2 mana crystals this turn. This only, and you overload for 2. Innervate never used to overload you. This does. But this card's still busted. You can, especially Kael'thas is in the game. You can abuse this so freaking badly. Kael'thas, Overflow, Lightning Bloom. Like, it's just... the potential for this card to break the game is just super high. It's a 5-star card in Standard. It's just ridiculous. And, yeah, it's going to be in a lot of Druid decks. And the Overload, yeah, it hurts at times. But if you cheat a bunch of mana and do something ridiculous, do you really care? Your opponent has to deal with that ridiculous turn. And you're likely either going to win on the spot or create such a disruption that they don't recover from. And then when you're unoverloaded, it doesn't really matter. So I'm giving it 5 stars in Standard. In Wild, it's going to be good too. I'm pretty sure you're going to run this in your combo decks like Malagos Druid or Linecracker or whatever to ramp. Just ramp. And the Token Druid deck will use it too because they don't care about overloading. You just cheat out Vicious Scalehigh like it's back in the old days. Cheat out giant minions and then you just don't care because your opponent can't answer it and you kill them. So I'm going to give it a 4 stars in Wild. I don't think it's as impactful, but it's very good card. Ridiculous, ridiculous. Next we have Nature Studies, 1 mana spell. Discover spell, your next one costs less. Really good. You get to discover a spell for 1 mana. It's borderline decent, and then you get to mana cheat on top of it, and that can carry over to any spell. You can do this, and all of a sudden Fungal Fortunes is 2 mana again, so... And you can play this with like Mount Seller and just chain a bunch of stupid stuff. Or with Kael'thas, chain a bunch of stupid stuff. Really good card. I'll give it a 4 for Standard. In Wild, I don't think it makes the cut in any of the current decks there. And I don't see any of the decks here really making a new archetype in Wild. So I'll give it a 2 as a good card, but that probably won't really see much play in Wild. Then lastly, we have Shando Wildclaw. It's a 3 mana 3/3 legendary. You get to choose one, give beast in your deck +1/+1, or transform it into a copy of a friendly beast. Yeah, there's quite a few good beasts in Druid, but again, I don't see Beast Druid being much of a thing, and this is awkward, and it only hand buffs Druid minions. I'm just not sold on it in Standard. I don't see it, so I'm going to give it a 2 there. And in Wild, even less so. I'm going to give it a 1. I don't know what you're doing with this in Wild, but hey, maybe you'll prove me wrong. So that's all the ratings for the Druid cards. Let me know what you think. Do you agree, disagree in the comments? We'll hit you back up with another review video very soon, so stay tuned. Like the video, subscribe, keep up to date, and we'll hit you up pretty soon with another one. Have a great day, and stay salty, my friends.